can change or try to do, okay, is hold them accountable to the rules and regulations in place and to make it as hard as we can for this thing to go off anyhow. I had every intention of bringing some students up here tonight. I'm sorry, 3 spring sports have started. Anybody who's engaged with anything at the school is usually an athlete because it's a small school. They're all tied up. But there is a critical mass of students that are really concerned about this. So I just want you to know that the 15 to 18-year-old demographic is definitely involved. The phrase I want you to take away with tonight is not their problem. Okay, anytime I raise my hands up like this, you want to say along, not their problem, go right ahead. Okay, sometimes it helps kind of jar things a little bit. And when I say they, what I'm talking about are, in this case, Mountain Valley Pipeline, but more in general, large publicly held companies that are not locally based. Okay, so any of the costs associated with this program most likely are not their problem. Okay, what they're after, of course, is profits, because that's the way the system is set up. So the theme or the thesis is that the financial costs, social costs, the environmental costs, okay, are going to be borne by us, because they are not their problem. Okay? And this is because it's just inherent to the nature of markets, especially extractive markets. And by extractive, I mean minerals. Okay? In this case, natural gas. Okay? An industry like an auto plant or a factory that stays in place has an interest in the local community. It employs local people. It's physically based there. It produces a product that people can use or service. An extractive industry is only interested as long as the resource is in the ground. Once it runs out, their interest is gone. Okay? In the case of a pipeline, there's not even any interest in the resource in the ground. The only interest is to get it done fast to save money, because we have salaries to pay, etc. So markets, by their very nature, of course, are a mixture of good and bad, like most things in life. They're highly efficient. That's a good thing. They're also ruthless and amoral, in that they really don't care about what happens as long as the profits are being generated for the shareholders. The market system is highly productive. We all profit from it. We all are part of it. But it also distributes wealth unevenly. It distributes wealth in people who have the skills or people that are financially invested in the program. They're also consumer driven, and as consumers, that's not a bad thing because we get the products we want. The problem with consumer driven market is it's short term. Okay? It doesn't see the long-term impacts typically of what's going on. Okay? So it's about the investors more so, and the consumers more so than the local communities. So once gas dries up, assuming it does, or the demand for it dries up, one or the other, okay, what's going to happen to the pipeline that's been laid? Is the company going to clean it up? No, because it's not their problem. Okay, it's just going to sit there. All you have to do is go to the New River Gorge and look at the abandoned coal mine down there to see what happens when an extractive industry is done pulling its product out of the ground where there's no longer a market for it. It's not going to do anything because once it's done generating wealth, it's not its problem. Okay, it's just not their problem. Same with environmental damage. There's no expectation that either the Mountain Valley Pipeline Company or the people extracting the natural gas or the consumers purchasing the natural gas will deal with any environmental health problems that occur along the route, because that is not their problem. Okay? They'll be done with it. Specifically dealing with the pipeline, I noticed, I guess, in the last op-ed that was from the EQT company, mentioned 4,000 jobs brought to West Virginia. Okay, bringing a job to West Virginia is not the same thing as hiring a West Virginian. Okay, I don't know about you. I don't know of too many of my students capable of welding 42-inch pipe, okay, to the standard they're looking for. Training people to do these jobs, okay, in the local area is not their problem, okay? They're not going to train anybody to do anything. They're going to bring them in here. Folks that are going to get hired locally will get minimum wage jobs, if that will last a maximum of 18 months to 2 years. And after they leave, what's going to happen to the unemployment rate? It's not their problem. Okay, statistically it has gone up after that. The worst thing you can do psychologically as someone is raise an expectation and then dash it. Okay? So by raising an expectation of a steady job and taking it away because you're finished, okay, it costs the community, but it's not their problem. Okay, it's our problem. Same with the health effects that Dale mentioned. Okay, water problems, air problems, public safety problems that Mike mentioned. Okay, the other health problems that Dr. Moore mentioned. These are all things to consider, but they're not things that the industry is going to consider because it's not their problem. Okay, their problem is to generate profits for their corporation. And the last one, I guess, is property value. I think at the beginning of the presentation, there's a discussion about what happens to property values when one of these comes across your land. The company may offer you some meager compensation for 2 to 5 years, at least that's what they told me at their open house, on a sliding scale that goes down, okay, based on the footprint of the pipe. Not the right of way, the pipe, okay? So you'll get a little bit of compensation briefly. After that, it's not their problem, okay? What happens to your property values is not their problem, right? And so I guess the last thing I'll just throw out there, if all these things are not their problem, whose problem are they? They're our problem, okay? And they're our problem to deal with. So the construction cost of the pipeline is estimated at in the vicinity of $3.5 billion. That does not include any of the other costs, okay? Briefly expanding to the kind of the national picture, okay? Just to get a little big picture snapshot of this thing. Typically when people talk about the wealth of a country or the wealth of a state, they use an indicator called gross domestic product. That's how much did you make, okay? Since about 1995, and in particular since about 2010, economists and social scientists are beginning to revisit that number because it only tells you about the money generated by business. Okay? It doesn't tell you anything about the quality of life, the health of the people, the distribution of income. It doesn't say anything about the education level. So there's actually 2 new indicators, one that the UN uses. It's called the Human Development Index. So the United States, of course, is #1 in gross domestic product. Interesting, we were 28 in Human Development Index. We factor in the health of our citizenry and the education of the kids. Okay. Industry is all about GDP. The Human Development Index is not their problem. Okay. So I just kind of throw that out there that in the big picture, industry is not necessarily interested in making America #1 or improving the lives of local people. It's interested in generating profits because that's what they do. It's up to us as consumers and us as voters in a representative democracy to hold industry accountable so that it can do the right thing, okay? Use the laws that are in place. I guess the last thing I'll throw in there, since I'm a military guy, that the Pentagon is not known for being the softest and kindest and gentlest institution in the world, but even the Pentagon in October 2014 published a report that raised a lot of concerns about the effect of climate change. You wouldn't think military people would care. Interestingly, it wasn't so much the threats to the bases that the Pentagon owns, although that's something to think about, particularly naval bases. It's the kind of socio-economic and political military strife that goes along with changing climate. So again, there's some consumer things, some big picture things, but the stuff for the county comes back to the idea that the cost will be borne by the community, and it's not their problem, it's our problem. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.